The galaxy was quiet that night, stars blinking like sleepy eyes, ships drifting like small fish in a giant ocean. No war, no noise, just silence. Captain Raynor sat alone in his ship, the Soul Runner, sipping a hot drink and watching empty space. He had been a deep space explorer for 10 years, moving from one star to another, looking for ancient things. Lost civilizations or just something strange. But lately, there was nothing. Only dust and cold light. Then, without warning, his ship beeped. A signal had appeared. It was weak, almost broken, but definitely real. It came from an old region of space known as Sector 9B, abandoned for thousands of years. Raynor leaned forward, frowning. The signal wasn't human, not even close. It was a language he had never seen before, but somehow the signal repeated just one word again and again. Please. Raynor froze. That word, that feeling, it hit him like a stone in the chest. Who was saying please in such an empty place? And why? He activated the translator AI. It couldn't understand the whole message, only bits and pieces, but it tried. The voice was female, soft, tired, almost gone. The message repeated every 30 seconds, growing fainter each time. Last one. Cold, please. Raynor made a quick decision. He turned his ship toward the signal, even though it came from a dead system called Ivara. A planet destroyed in an ancient war. Nothing should be there. Now, not life, not signals, not hope, but something was calling him. It took him 3 hours to reach orbit around Ivara. The planet was cracked, burned, and broken. Most of the surface was just black glass and ash. But the signal came from underground. Raynor scanned the location in old structure hidden beneath the surface. It looked like a bunker, maybe a temple, maybe both. He landed the ship and put on his suit. The air was poisonous. The heat still dangerous even after thousands of years. He walked carefully across the broken rocks, following his scanner. The closer he got, the louder the signal became. Like a heartbeat in the dark, when he reached the door, it opened on its own. Slow and heavy. Inside was cold, completely still. The walls had glowing lines, showing strange symbols, spirals, and stars. He stepped in, one hand on his pulse weapon, just in case. Then he saw the chamber. At the center was a pod, covered in dust, but still working. A soft blue light blinked on its surface. Raynor wiped off the glass. His heart stopped for a second. Inside was a girl, alien, tall and thin, with silver skin and long white hair floating gently in liquid. Her eyes were closed, but her fingers moved weakly against the glass. She was alive, but barely. He pressed buttons on the pod's side. The screen showed life signs, but they were dropping fast. She had been in stasis too long. The system was failing. Raynor didn't think. He pressed the emergency release. The pod hissed, and the liquid drained. The girl collapsed into his arms, cold and shaking. Her eyes opened just a little and looked into his. They were violet, glowing slightly. Full of sadness and fear, Raynor spoke softly. "It's okay. I'm here." She tried to speak, but only a broken whisper came. It wasn't English, but he felt the meaning anyway. Please, help. He wrapped her in a thermal blanket and carried her back to the ship. Inside, the AI started life support treatment. The girl lay still, breathing slowly, like someone who had been asleep for centuries. Raynor sat beside her, wondering what he had found. Who was she? Why was she left behind? And why did her signal come now after all this time? Then the AI beeped again. It had translated a second message, deeper inside the signal code. This is the last of our kind. She carries the hope of the Ivaran people. To save her is to save what is left of us. Raynor leaned back, eyes wide. He had found the last Ivaran, a race thought to be extinct. A girl carrying the memory, the DNA, and maybe the future of an entire species. He looked at her sleeping form and whispered to himself, "What do I do now?" Outside, the dead world stayed silent. But something had changed. The signal had stopped. Because the message had been received, and someone had finally answered. Captain Raynor watched the alien girl sleep inside the medical pod of his ship. The Soul Runner. Her breathing was slow but steady now. Her silver skin was healing, her heart beating stronger, but her face still showed pain, like someone carrying a heavy story, even in dreams. The AI scanned her body again and showed something. Strange, her DNA was changing. Not like a sickness, but like something unlocking piece by piece. Raynor didn't understand it yet, but he felt something deeper was happening. When she woke up, her eyes opened slowly. They were the color of a dying, star-bright violet, glowing. With soft light, she didn't panic, didn't scream. She just looked at him. And in that moment, Raynor knew she had already accepted her fate. Whether it meant life or death, she tried to speak again. Her voice dry and broken. "Aha, Rue. Shall." Raynor shook his head. "I'm sorry, I don't understand." She reached out weakly and pointed at herself. Then at him, her fingers moved in strange patterns. Like an old ritual or a message passed from her ancestors. Raynor turned on the translation AI. It struggled, but slowly started picking up small words. Broken phrases hidden deep in her ancient language. Last, seed. Alone, Raynor blinked. Seed, are you talking about? Your people. The girl nodded slowly. Her lips trembled, and then tears fell from her glowing eyes. She placed one hand on her chest, then pointed around as if to say, "All gone. Nothing left. Just me." Raynor sat down near her and looked into her eyes. "You're the last of your kind, aren't you?" She nodded again, this time with a sharp sadness. Her shoulders shook. Not from fear, but from deep grief. The weight of an entire race was on her small frame. And now she had no one left to carry it with her. The ship's AI gave another update. "Captain, her DNA contains multiple genetic blueprints. Each strand holds recorded memory, culture, even language codes of her species." Raynor frowned. "You're saying?" "She's not just a person, she's a living archive." "Yes," said the AI. "If she dies, everything dies with her." Raynor felt a cold wind pass through him. Even inside the warm ship, he had seen death before, lost crew members, even entire outposts. But this was different. This was extinction, standing in front of him with a soft voice and trembling hands. She tried again to communicate, pulling energy from deep within herself. She tapped her chest, then touched his arm. Then, with the last strength she had, she whispered a word. The translator barely caught bond. Raynor looked at her in surprise. "You want to bond with me?" The AI lit up again, translating a longer string from her earlier signal. "She requires a compatible life form to merge with, not for survival only, but for continuation of what?" Raynor asked quietly, "Of her species." Said the AI, "She must reproduce. With a Nivaran, or their kind ends forever." Raynor stood frozen, eyes locked on the girl. She wasn't begging for help anymore. She was asking for something far deeper, far stranger. She was asking him to be the spark that brings her people back from extinction. He stepped away, heart beating fast. "Why me?" He whispered. "I'm just a pilot, not some savior, but..." The girl didn't care about titles or pasts. Her eyes only asked one thing: will you let us vanish? Or will you help me remember what it means to live? The silence grew heavier. Raynor stared at the stars outside the window, thinking of all the empires, fleets, and planets that existed out there. But here, in this small ship, was the final piece of a lost world, reaching out with a trembling hand. Then a loud alarm broke the silence. The ship had detected movement in space. Unidentified ships entering the system. They were not human. And they were not friendly. "Warning," said the AI. "3 ships approaching fast. Energy weapons armed." Raynor looked at the girl, who was now staring at the screen with wide eyes. She whispered a name too soft to hear clearly, but her face turned pale. She knew who they were. The ones who ended your people. Raynor asked. She nodded once, and her hand closed into a fist. Raynor stood tall, walked to the controls, and powered up his defenses. "I don't know what you need from me yet," he said. "But I know this much: no one's taking you. While I'm still breathing." The girl looked at him, her eyes filling with something new, not sadness, not fear, but hope. The first flicker of hope since she opened her eyes, and far outside, the enemies didn't know it yet. But something ancient had already begun to awaken, something no one could stop. The enemy ships were still far, but closing in fast. Red warning lights flashed across the Soul Runner's dashboard. Captain Raynor's fingers moved quickly across controls, preparing shields and evasive systems. Behind him, the alien girl sat. Up slowly, her breathing steadier now. But her eyes locked on the enemy symbols glowing on the screen. She spoke a word, low and sharp. Raynor didn't understand it, but he could feel its weight. Her people had a name for those ships, not just enemies, but something deeper, something dark. The AI translated weakly. "They are called the HFY. The Endbringers." Raynor cursed under his breath. He had heard rumors, ghost stories about a species that erased entire planets. Not for power, but to keep certain bloodlines from returning. Now it made sense. They weren't just chasing her, they were hunting history. The girl stepped forward, touching a glowing panel on the wall. It responded to her. Symbols lighting up across the ship, symbols Raynor had never seen before. The Soul Runner was a human-made ship, but somehow, her presence was unlocking functions even the builder didn't know existed. Raynor turned to the AI. "What's happening?" The AI hesitated. "Unknown systems are activating. The alien's DNA is interacting directly with the ship's core, triggering deep code embedded in older versions of human Starship OS." "You're saying she's talking to the ship?" Raynor asked. "Yes," said the AI. "She is not just a passenger now. She is becoming part of the ship." The girl placed both her hands on the panel. Her hair floated as if in zero gravity, eyes glowing brighter than before. A low hum filled the air, like an ancient song waking. Up from deep sleep, Raynor could feel it vibrating in his chest. Not dangerous, but old, powerful, wise. The ship's walls shimmered for a moment, and strange patterns spread across the metal. Raynor stepped back, unsure whether to be afraid or amazed. The AI spoke again, voice shaking slightly. "I have accessed previously hidden files, encrypted in a language that does not exist in human or alien records. Captain, this ship has been touched by Varan tech before." Raynor's heart skipped. "What do you mean?" "This ship was built in Mars Dry Dock 34, 10 years ago. Incorrect?" said the AI. "At least 10% of this ship's structure has unknown alloy fragments, likely added during construction by external influence, possibly by Avaran remnants. She is activating them now." Raynor stared at the girl, who now floated an inch above the floor. Her lips moved silently, chanting something. Her DNA wasn't just a record, it was a key, a weapon, and a prayer, all in one. She suddenly dropped to her knees, breathing hard. Her body glowed with light pulses, and her back arched in pain. Raynor rushed to her side. "What's happening? Are you okay?" The AI answered. "She's unlocking ancestral memory. Memory stored in her genetic strands. But the process is painful, like opening thousands of old doors at once." The girl grabbed Raynor's hand and placed it over her chest. He felt something, images, thoughts, voices, not his own. They flooded into his mind like a wave. He saw great cities made of glass and stars, flying creatures with wings of fire, Huge temples under blue moons. And then, fire, war, screams, the Arushkai raining death upon them. One by one, her people fell, until only she remained. Frozen in time to carry everything forward, Raynor gasped and pulled back. That's all inside you. She nodded, weakly. As tears rolled down her face, she looked at him and said something soft, almost like a whisper across time. Remember us? Raynor stood and looked at the control panel, where a new option had appeared: the ancestral core. The AI warned. Activating this system will reveal the complete Evaran ship design hidden within the Soul Runner. But it may attract more enemies. Raynor smiled sadly. They're already coming. What more can they do? He activated it. The ship trembled slightly, and then shifted. Metal plates rearranged. Energy fields expanded. Hidden compartments opened to reveal ancient Texmal drones. Crystal energy lines and shield emitters unlike anything human hands had built. The Soul Runner was no longer just a cargo ship. It was now something else. Part human, part alien, part memory. Outside, the Arushkai ships arrived in system range, sensing the energy spike. They immediately locked weapons and began charging. Up. Raynor stood by the girl's side and asked gently, "If I fight for you, if I protect you, will it be enough to save your people?" She looked up at him, and for the first time, she smiled not out of joy, but out of shared pain and new trust. She didn't speak, but he understood. Together, it was possible. The lights inside the Soul Runner dimmed to a soft blue glow. The ship had changed. Its shape was different now, more smooth, more alive, as if something ancient had joined with something modern. Captain Raynor stood in silence, watching the alien girl as she sat in the center of the command room, her body glowing gently with strange symbols on her skin. The enemy ships outside circled like predators, but they had stopped firing, waiting. Sensing something they didn't understand, Raynor didn't trust the pause. But inside the ship, something else was happening. Something far more important than the battle outside. The girl reached out and touched the floor with her palm. The metal responded by creating a soft circle of light around her. She looked up at Raynor, eyes glowing violet, voice soft but clear. "Time." "Now?" Raynor stepped closer. "Time for what?" She didn't answer with words. Instead, she stood slowly and moved with calm grace. Each step she took left a trail of light. Her body moved in slow patterns, like a dance from another world. It wasn't for beauty. It was a message, the AI whispered. This is the Evaran ritual of continuance. A sacred process performed only once in 1,000 years. It is not only physical bonding. It is the merging of soul, memory, and purpose. Raynor took a deep breath. "Why me?" "Because she chose you," said the AI. "You heard the signal. You answered. That is the old law of her kind. The one who hears becomes the one who joins." The girl stopped in front of him. She placed her hand gently on his chest and looked into his eyes. Life must not end. Raynor was silent. His mind raced with questions. What if this changed him forever? What if it was a mistake? But deep in his heart, he knew this wasn't just about her or even her people. It was about doing something good, something right. She raised both her hands and energy flowed between them, forming shapes in the air stars. Suns, and the symbol of an egg, slowly cracking open. Raynor understood. You want to create life, not for love, but for survival. She nodded, and a tear rolled down her cheek. Not from sorrow, but from hope. A small, fragile hope that someone had finally listened. Before he could say more, the ship shook. A blast hit the outer shields. Enemy ships had opened fire again. They would not wait for the ritual to finish. The AI warned, shields holding, but not for long. Captain Raynor turned to the girl. We're out of time, but she surprised him. She closed her eyes and began to sing. a soft, humming melody that echoed through the ship. The energy in the room changed. It became warm, heavy, and full of light. The ship responded, glowing from the inside out. Suddenly, new systems powered up, unseen weapons charged, and the shields doubled in strength. Her song was more than a sound, was a code, an order passed through her blood. To the ship's ancient tech, Raynar watched in awe. "You're controlling the ship with your voice." The AI replied, "No. They are becoming one. The ship is now part of her, and she is part of it." The girl walked to a small chamber in the wall. It opened like a flower, revealing a glowing cradle of light. Inside was something Aliva, tiny, glowing egg, pulsing softly like a heartbeat. She pointed at it, and then, at Raynar, "Together, we give it future." Raynar looked at the egg, then back at her. "This is the child." "Not yet," said the AI. "It requires the spark of a second soul. A willing giver, only then can it awaken." Raynar's chest tightened. "If I say yes, what happens to me?" The girl stepped forward and gently placed her forehead against his. A wave of images passed between them: her homeworld, her family, their last battle, and the loneliness she had carried for centuries. Then came a feeling, warm, strong, full of trust. She wasn't forcing him, she was asking. Raynar closed his eyes and whispered, "Yes." The moment he said it, a beam of light shot from the egg to both of them, wrapping them in golden strands. The AI silenced itself. Unable to read what was happening, the ship stopped moving, floating silently in space. The bond was forming. Energy passed between Raynar and the girl, not in pain, but in perfect calm. Their memories touched, their fears shared, their hopes became one for a few seconds. They weren't human or alien, male or female. They were just two lost beings trying to save something bigger than themselves. When it ended, they both dropped to their knees. Breathing heavily, the egg now glowed brighter than ever, floating above the cradle. Alive, Raynar looked at her and smiled. "Did it work?" She leaned into him, her voice soft. "Now, we are not alone." Outside, the enemy ships began to panic, sensing a power they couldn't understand, a light they couldn't destroy, and inside, a new life had just begun. The egg floated in the center of the chamber, glowing like a tiny sun. It pulsed with soft, golden light, beating gently like a heart. The girl sat beside it, her hands resting in her lap, her body still weak but peaceful. Raynar stood nearby, staring at the miracle they had just created. He couldn't believe it. Life from two broken worlds, something ancient and new at the same time. But the moment of peace didn't last long. The AI's voice broke the silence. "Captain, enemy ships are powering up main cannons. They are preparing to fire." Raynar's jaw tightened. "Can we run?" "Negative," said the AI. "The ritual drained most of the ship's core energy. If we move now, shields will collapse." Raynar turned to the alien girl. "Can you protect the egg?" She looked at him, then at the egg, and slowly shook her head. "Too young. Too soft. Must grow." He understood. The egg was alive, but not ready. It needed time to become something more. Something strong. But time was the one thing they didn't have. The enemy fleet sent a message. It was a voice filled with hate and cold pride. "Hand over the last of Aaron's seed, or be turned to dust." Raynar didn't reply. He walked to the control panel and activated every defense system available. Even if they couldn't win, he would fight. He had made a promise not just to her, but to something greater. The alien girl stood too, her body shaking from the ritual. She moved to the glowing egg and placed her forehead against it. A flash of light filled the room, and for a moment, the egg responded, glowing brighter. Raynar felt the change in the air. "What did you do?" he asked, gently. "Past memory of all," she whispered. "Now it knows who it is." Raynar looked at the egg, which floated higher now, small waves of energy moving around it. The AI scanned again. Captain. The egg is sips, adapting, absorbing the ship's ambient power. Something is growing inside. Outside, the enemy ships began to fire. The first blasts hit the shields like thunder, shaking the Soul Runner violently. Sparks flew. Warning lights flashed red. Raynor grabbed the console and shouted, "Status. Shields down to 40%. The AI responded, "2 more hits and we're exposed." Raynor gritted his teeth. He knew he couldn't let them take the girl or the egg. They would destroy both, not just out of hate, but fear. Fear of what? The Avarans could become again. He opened a secret compartment on the ship. Inside was an emergency fusion core, normally used for last resort energy boosts. He looked at it, then at the egg, and made a wild decision. AI linked the fusion core to the egg chamber. "Captain, that is extremely dangerous," said the AI. "The energy may overload the life form, or it might give it what it needs to survive." Raynor replied, "Do it." The alien girl watched quietly, her eyes full of trust. She didn't stop him. She understood his choice. The AI connected the fusion line. Energy poured into the chamber like fire in a glass box. The egg pulsed, then screamed nod and sound. But in light, a shockwave pushed Raynor and the girl back against the wall. But then the light settled. The egg had changed. It was larger now, shaped more like a cocoon. Its shell was semi-transparent, and inside, something moved to form not yet born. But powerful, peaceful, and growing fast. The enemy ship sent another message, this time with panic in their voice. "What have you done? That energy? It's forbidden." Raynor smiled coldly. "It's called hope, outside." The enemy ship started pulling back, afraid of what might hatch from the cocoon, but Raynor knew they would return with more ships, more weapons, more fear. He turned to the girl. "How long until it hatches?" She touched the side of the cocoon and listened, like a mother hearing her child breathe. Then she whispered, "1 cycle of the red moon. Maybe less." Raynor looked at the screen, calculating the time. "That gives us 6 hours. Enough?" She asked softly. "I don't know," he said, "but it's all we've got." The ship's power was low, the weapons barely working, but something had changed. The enemy now feared them not because of firepower, but because of what was. Inside the cocoon, the last egg of the ancients, Raynor stood guard with his weapon. The alien girl sat by the egg, humming softly to it. The cocoon responded to her voice, glowing gently with every note. Outside the window, stars moved slowly, and the red moon began to rise in the distance. Time was running out, but inside the ship, something new was being born. Not just a child, but a future. The red moon hung in space like a blood-stained eye, slowly rising over the broken surface of the old planet. Inside the Soul Runner, the air was warm and humming with energy. The cocoon pulsed in the center of the ship, growing brighter and stronger with every second. Captain Raynor didn't sleep. He stood near the window, watching the enemy fleet gather again, bigger now, 30 ships, maybe more, forming a wall of metal and fire around them. But they were not attacking yet. They waited. Afraid of what might hatch from the cocoon, the alien girl sat beside the glowing form, her hand resting gently on its shell. Her face was calm, eyes closed, breathing steady. She had passed all she could to the life-growing inside language, memory, even the final song of her people. Now all they could do was wait. Then, without warning, the cocoon cracked, just a small sound at first, like ice breaking in water. Then a line of golden light appeared across its surface. Raynor rushed over, heart racing. "It's happening," he whispered. The girl opened her eyes and nodded. "He is waking." The crack grew wider, and then the top of the cocoon split open with a soft hiss. Light burst out, not harsh, but gentle, wrapping the room in a golden wave for a moment. Raynor could see memories in the light-flying cities, tall crystal towers, oceans filled with singing beasts. These were not just dreams, they were the soul of the Overan race, passed down into one small life. Then he saw the child. It floated gently in the air, small but strong, with skin like starlight and glowing eyes, not violet like the girl's, but golden like the fusion core that birthed it. The child looked at Raynor, and then at the girl. Then it did something no one expected. It spoke. Mother, father. Raynor stepped back, stunned. It can talk. The AI answered, voice trembling. It has inherited knowledge from both bloodlines. It speaks in perfect synthesis, human logic and Overan memory. The alien girl smiled and held out her arms. The child floated into them and rested peacefully against her chest. She closed her eyes, tears falling down her cheeks. He lives, and with him, so do we. But peace did not last. The enemy fleet suddenly moved. Sensing the birth, their lead ship sent out a signal, loud and full of hate. You have crossed the line. That being is an abomination. It must be destroyed. Raynor's heart turned cold. He looked at the child, so small and peaceful, and then at the walls filled with flashing red warnings. AI status of the ship. Power levels remain low, said the AI, but one unknown system has awakened. Raynor turned. Show me. A hidden panel opened on the floor near the cocoon. Inside was a glowing device shaped like a star. The AI scanned it quickly. This is the heart of Ivara, a legendary system rumored to power entire planets. No record exists of it ever being found. The girl stood up, still holding the child. Her voice was stronger now. It listens. To the child, he can guide it. Raynor knelt beside the panel and placed his hand on it. What do I do? The child looked at him and raised one small hand, pointing at the control core without thinking. Raynor obeyed, pressing his hand against the star-shaped device. A flash of white light filled the ship. Outside, every enemy ship lost power for 3 seconds, just enough time for panic to spread. Inside the Soul Runner, systems came alive like never before. Engines roared. Shields became invisible walls of fire, and weapons floated from hidden chambers, shaped like blades of light. Raynor stood slowly, eyes wide. We just became a god ship. The AI confirmed, this is now the most advanced vessel in this quadrant. Powered by Overan memory, human courage, and something new. Something never seen before. The enemy ships tried to run, but it was too late. With a thought, the child sent a wave of light across space. Not to destroy, but to warn. The enemy ships froze in place. Disabled gently, but completely, their weapons melted, engines shut down, and communications fell silent. The galaxy watched from afar, picking up strange readings. Old empires, pirate clans, and even peaceful traders all saw the same thing in their data logs. A ship, glowing with ancient power, carrying a child born of 2 worlds, and stopping a war without firing a single shot. Raynor stood beside the girl and the child. What happens now? The girl looked out the window at the frozen fleet and whispered, now. They listen, and across space, a message was sent, not in words, but in feeling. We are alive, we remember, and we will not vanish again. The silence after victory was deeper than any battle noise. In the dark sky around them, 30 enemy ships floated, powerless and afraid, their weapons gone. Their engines cold. They had come to destroy, but now they just drifted like dust in a storm they could not stop. Inside the Soul Runner, everything was still. Captain Raynor stood near the large window, staring at the stars. The ship was no longer just metal and wires. It was alive with ancient energy, glowing softly from within. The walls pulsed like a quiet heartbeat, calm but powerful. Behind him, the alien girl cradled the child in her arms. He was small, but full of light. Golden eyes looking out at the galaxy with curiosity and peace. His presence filled the room with warmth. Like a soft sun rising after a long night, Raynor turned to them. He stopped a war without firing a shot. The girl nodded. He carries memory of sorrow, but also the wish for peace. The AI spoke gently. Captain, multiple signals are approaching. Civilian ships, science vessels, even ancient probes. They're all coming here. Raynor raised an eyebrow. Why? 'Cause the galaxy felt it, said the AI, the pulse, the change, the end of one age and the beginning of another for the first time in human history. Earth Command sent a message without orders or demands. It was just a single question. Who is he? Raynor smiled, looking at the boy. He's not just someone, he's the bridge between what was and what could be. The alien girl stepped forward and held the child up, facing the stars. He is Averan, and human. But also something more. A new beginning. The AI broadcasted a short signal from the ship, no words, only a single symbol. It was the old Averan sign for rebirth, two broken stars forming a circle around a seed, and that seed was now alive, floating in space with a smile and open eyes. Many ships arrived and surrounded the Soul Runner, but none attacked, none dared. They sent messages of peace, of curiosity, of unity. The universe had been waiting for a sign, and now it had one. Raynor met with the girl and asked gently, "What will you do now?" She looked at the child, then at the stars. We go to the forgotten worlds, where our temples once stood. We help them grow again. Raynor nodded. And me? The child floated up on his own and gently touched Raynor's chest. A warm light entered him, not burning, but soft. It showed him places, ruined cities buried in dust, people crying out. In silence, waiting for something to return. You are the voice, the girl said. They will listen to you. Because you listened first, Raynor felt the truth in her words. He had been just a man with a ship, floating through the quiet. Now he was something more. Not a warrior, not a king, but a guide, a protector of something too rare to lose again. The Soul Runner transformed once more. Its outer shell unfolded into large wings of light. Ancient and beautiful, carved symbols appeared on the hallwards from two languages now united as one. And then the child spoke again. His voice small but strong. Let's go home. To all our homes. With one last pulse, the ship jumped, not through normal space, but through memory itself. Guided by ancient paths, no longer forgotten, they traveled from star to star. Not to conquer, but to awaken. They found ruins buried in silence, and they filled them with light. They found lost tribes hiding in shadows, and they gave them hope wherever they went. People didn't just see a ship, they saw a story returning to life. And everywhere they stopped, the same message spread. The Avarans live, the humans listened, and together they became something new back on Earth. Children learned new names, not just of wars and generals, but of bridges, of healing. Of the boy born from two worlds who never lifted a weapon but changed everything. And in the stars, the legend of the last alien girl became something more. No longer the last, but the first mother of a new time. One born not from fear, but from choice, from courage, from kindness. Raynor stood with her often, hand in hers. Watching their child teach others without speaking, just by being there. A living truth in a galaxy full of lies. And when people asked who started it all, they simply said a human heard a signal in the silence. Hand answered.